Well, hello there, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. We are reaching for the stars. I am your host, Christopher Tarantola, and today we are going to launch Mohoron 02. This is the second iteration of Mohoron because the first one did not have enough Delta V, and so we ended up sending it to Eve, and it's on its way to Eve right now, redubbed Eve's Apple. We just completed our contract to do a bio scan of the moon in the last episode. And so now we're going to launch this and send it on its way to Moho. I am not going to go over the launch to orbit. If you'd like to see a tutorial of that, look at one of my earlier videos. There's a couple different videos where I go over that, both for an equatorial orbit and a polar orbit. For this one, I'm just going to fast forward to that, and I will see you when we start trying to plan the interplanetary stuff. So delete this, and I'll see you on the other side. Uh-oh, what's going on here? So, the stage went off. And so, we're going to have to revert this flight, so we'll see it one more time. Right, so, I went ahead and I'm going to show that just to show that, hey, A, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and B, you know, it happens to the best of us. So, my staging is not correct. Instead, I think this needs to be up here. And that way, these engines are the first ones to run out because they go into these, and these go into the center. So these should be the first ones to go out, and indeed, yeah, I just had my staging incorrect there, and that caused issues. So we're going to try it again. I just move forward of where I think I'm going to want to burn. So I'm going to add this maneuver. You should be about an hour out from our optimal launch window, but I'm going to go ahead and click this burn here and see how it does. It's actually, with Mohoron, it's different, right? So with, like, say, Duna, you burn until you, as you can see here, you encounter the orbit. Because this is not the selected ship, it doesn't actually show the encounter, but right about here, we will encounter Duna with my Duna Explorer. Darius Prime, I believe, is the name of that ship. And so we'll encounter it here. Well, all we got to do is, when we were at Kerbal, pull our Apple Apsis up at the right time, and we did have to finagle with it a little bit, but more or less we got it. And so we knew we would get the capture. With Moho, however, because Moho has such an inclined orbit, as you can see here, unless you are at the descending and ascending nodes, that's not going to be the case. It's just not. And so our difficulty is we need to go ahead and just look straight down as far as the plane goes, go ahead and continue to burn here until that comes down to here. Now, you know you're not doing it quite right when your apoapse starts to move off from when you're burning, and really your periapse. If you're burning up, and your apoapse when you're burning down like I am here. So one of the things you can do is move it forward a couple bit. And so if I zoom in, it went away, and that's because, yeah, I'm hitting the moon's sphere of influence. Actually, I'm hitting Minimus's sphere of influence of all the things. It's like almost impossible to do. Not impossible, but very difficult if you try to do what I just did there. That's kind of funny and interesting. But in any case, we're just going to keep on clicking it ahead a little bit until it gets out of Minimus's influence. There we go. And click it again. Yeah, until this apoapse gets back to where it ought to be at our location. That's going to be the most efficient time to burn. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and so then we want to continue to burn prograde. Counterintuitively, because you're lowering the periapsis, right? But remember, you're lowering the periapsis by burning retrograde to Kerbin's movement, not your own. At this point in Kerbin's, your orbit around Kerbin, you are going to be burning retrograde to Kerbin as Kerbin moves in this direction. And that's why we're burning prograde, because we are going backwards relative to Kerbin's orbit around Kerbal, rather, the star Kerbal. Yeah, so that's why that is counterintuitive like that. You can see that our apoapsis is still not quite where we are, and we can maybe try and mess with that a little bit more, but we got more or less where we need to go. And so the next step is going to be, before we even do that burn, we have 27 minutes to play with this. I'm going to go to the descending node, and again, you can't click on descending node because it's not referring to this descending node at this point in the game. But we can go ahead and eyeball it and get it pretty close. And what we want to try and do, if this is the descending node, you burn ascending until the descending node gets to 0. So we'll get to where I right-clicked on that. And I'm going to move upwards here. And I know I'm repeating a lot of information that I've done in other videos and that you guys already know. But just in case somebody's watching that hasn't watched all those other videos, it's still going to be helpful to know these things. And to remind you, for those that might have forgotten. And look, we got a pretty close encounter there, so I just pull back on my orbit maybe a little bit, and maybe change my angle of attack here. And that looks like it's getting closer. And maybe a little bit more of this. Kind of jumped there on me. I'm going to try and I'm going to try and ascend a little bit more. And it's getting to 0. Let's see, what is our issue? Are we just not? Yeah, so we just need to continue to burn this way. Oh, and we've lost our closest approach. Is that because that has gone wrong? So 0. Let's try and change when we burn by a little bit. Oh, and see, there we get our capture that way. So I'm going to F5 since I have a capture. I'm going to go ahead and focus on Moho and see if I can't walk this in a little bit. Actually, I'm not going to do that because that's really a second burn. And so I'm going to make my first burn before I worry about fine-tuning my second burn, because that second burn is not going to actually happen right there. Burn time, these dotted assumption lines, basically where it assumes your orbit is going to be, are based on if you were able to instantly change your delta V, like it says it needs 1542 delta 0.5 meters per second delta B. So if you were able to instantly induce that 1542.5 in 0 seconds, this is the orbit you would have. Well, we can't do that, right? We have to deal with thrust to weight ratio and ISP issues, and so it takes time to do a burn, and because it takes time, these dotted lines are not exact. And the longer your burn, and the more sensitive to initial conditions your target position and or orbit is, the harder it's going to be to get it where you actually show the dotted line. And so you got to play into that issue, and that's partially a mechanic of the game. So the more you deal with that, the more you got to realize that I'm not going to fine tune this until after I've got this done. So I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward to my burn. I have 2,000 meters per second on my current stage, so I actually don't need to look at this stage besides the fact that it's pretty. And so I got to try and keep an eye on my time. Go ahead and fast forward. I can't go past 50, so I can't really do too much damage as far as, actually I'm going to zero out my time warp because I need to fix my attitude. So once you put your maneuver in, you fix your attitude, which I forgot. Always fixing your attitude in Kerbal Space Program, because if you don't have a great attitude, you're never going to go to where you want to be. I'm sure there's some very deep parallels there to life, but I have no idea what they are because I haven't gotten anywhere with my life. Except here, I'm loving to death Kerbal Space Program and playing this game in such a way that I can share it with you guys online. Okay, so as I've corrected my attitude, I'm going to go back to time warp. I'm going to try and fix it a little bit better than I just did. Come on, get over there. There you go. And warp. That's close enough. Right, and so we're going to fast forward to the other side of the planet. One thing to note when you're doing one of these burns, particularly if it's a long burn, you want to be careful not to burn into the atmosphere, because there's such a long burn and you're starting your burn at halfway. It can sometimes have you burning like severely below the horizon line. Like I got 30 seconds, it's gonna have me be below the horizon line. So if you have a low orbit, it's like I have. I mean, five kilometers, and I'm back in the atmosphere, and that is not where I want to be for one of these burns. So you might need to just put it to prograde instead of on the maneuver node, and burn prograde, and that will fix your problem. Or build a ship that has a higher thrust to weight ratio, so you don't have to burn for as long for the same delta V. Those are the two ways you can fix that. One is obviously easier to do on the fly than others, than the other rather. All right, so we're going to burn for a full minute and 15 seconds. Actually, it was like 16, 17 seconds, but that's quite a long burn. Not the longest by any means, but a long burn nonetheless. And so we're just going to watch this. I'm going to fast forward. Okay, we got 1, 0, X. And so let's check our orbit. Yeah, and I think we got pretty close. Sorry if you hear some background noise. Again, I'm at my father's house, so there are other people here and not just me. And you see, as soon as I X'd out, we lost our capture because this maneuver is just slightly different than what it was. I'm just going to try and see if I can move it around to be where I want it to be. But it's also not at the descending node, so that's probably a problem. Yeah, so moving that just slightly got us a capture. Yeah, we got a Moho encounter there. So now I'll focus on Moho and try and walk it in. And Moho, it's such a small planet, particularly for how fast you're going to be going through if you're coming straight from Kerbal the way we are, that you're going to want to... actually, hold on a second. Right, okay, guys, so we are no longer on Mohoron. We're in the... Oh, what is this place called? I don't remember. Map view for the... you guys know where I'm at. I can't think of the name to save my life. So this is Mohoron 02. You can see we just made our burn, and we are on an escape vector from Kerbin, and we have a burn node here, a maneuver node, that's going to get us a capture with Moho. And this is about 1019 Delta V, which is not too shabby. And it's going to be in about 40 days. Actually, what we need to do is we need to add a maneuver alarm for Moho 02 to pause. And where's the half burn time? Time to node, time to alarm. I'm not sure. I'm just going to say 30 minutes. Just to be safe, we're going to add that alarm. Okay, and so you can tell that's actually the next alarm. But before I just fast forward through those 40 days, since even though that's the next thing, and after that is Eve's Apple, which shall likely be in the next episode. Likely, I say because I sometimes change my mind on things where I think it's appropriate. But before we do, I want to check on Kerbal Space Station here. All right, so looking at the life support status, which you can bring up in the tracking station, you can see everybody. We have only about 3 days worth of electric charge, but of course we have panels on there that recharge the ship, so that won't always be counting down. It will a lot of times be going back up. They must be on the dark side. No, they're not, so I'm not sure why it's counting down. But your habitability here is your biggest limiter. You got 33 days, yeah. So we only have 33 days before these guys start rioting because their mental status is saying this is just too cramped an environment for me. So before we fast forward these 40 days, we're going to have to take care of that. I do believe we will do that in the next episode. This episode is ending right about 30 minutes. So thank you for watching. Next episode, actually what we will do is we will get a suitable habitat for Jebediah, Maki, and Bob that will expand the habitat's functionality such that this habitation countdown timer will vastly increase. We'll also make sure that there's nothing wrong with our electric charge issues, which I don't think there is, but just to be sure. And then once we've done that, we'll go back to Mohoron. We'll perform the maneuver. Here, let me get this out of here. Back to Mohoron, and we will perform the maneuver such that we can get this capture at Moho. And that's the maneuver we will perform. And then after we perform that maneuver, we'll probably check in on the KSS, and so barring something needing to happen at KSS, we'll then go to Apple's Eve, and we will encounter Eve, and that will be our first live encounter of a planet by another planet by a probe, which will be quite exciting. So that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, you guys. I really appreciate your patronage. If you like what you see, please subscribe and like this video. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.